Okay, let's start. I'm recording also, so in case there's an issue, we can always publish it. So let's go into, welcome everyone. My name is Pamela Gupta, and I'm here with Sam Wigglesworth. We are here to talk about a complex and a very complex and a critical area, I think, in how we are building out artificial intelligence systems. What is AI? Because we do use it as an umbrella term, and there are different components of AI, such as I'll go into more depth later on, such as NLP, for example, which requires a completely different view of risk and identifying those risks and mitigating those risks than, for example, another area of AI, which is extremely well known, which is machine learning. Okay, so we'll definitely go into a little bit of what is AI, what are the different areas of AI, and how NLP fits into that whole paradigm. But the objective of this series of workshops is to give an idea of how do we actually build trust? What is trust, and how do we build these systems with security, with privacy, with ethics, with governance, okay, from the ground up? Let me pass the, Sam, I want to pass it over to you, and then we'll do, in-depth introductions.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, and I think one of the key objectives as well for us is to really introduce you to the artificial intelligence, if you like, area, but also the key components of AI, and what we mean by deep learning and machine learning when we use those terms, and how that links into natural language processing in particular. So we'll introduce you to the key concepts around that, and what NLP involves, what it is, how we build NLP technology from a low code, no code perspective, and really look at some of the pros and cons and some of the risks around the various different inputs that we see in our everyday lives as business professionals and as users of natural language processing tools. NLP is something that's globally available as an application now across the world, across different sectors, whether that's in education or in healthcare. It's pervasive in how we live our lives, but we don't understand the risks and some of the privacy and concerns and security implications fully. NLP doesn't just include text and speech inputs. NLP can also involve the use of voice, image, and video. And really, this series of talks is about introducing these key areas and the basics in these topics. And we're going to introduce ourselves individually now and our backgrounds, and then we'll start with the first intro topic, which is what is NLP. Okay.
So Sam, go ahead if you want to introduce yourself, and I'll follow after you.
Okay, no problem. So I am the founder of an organization called Girls and Boys in Tech. My background in education is that I have a bachelor's in business administration and languages, particularly German and Spanish. I'm from Lancaster in the UK. I studied abroad at an international school in Germany, where I developed my linguistics, my business and economics background as well. I'm a teacher, a qualified teacher, and I've been doing that for a number of years now, for over 10 years now. And my commercial experience as well is across different sectors, so aerospace, oil and gas, manufacturing, and business consulting. I've worked in the IT sector for a number of years before teaching, and I've traveled quite a lot with my language background across different countries, so the US, EU, Middle East, and Canada. My background is in the deep learning and machine learning space and in natural language processing. Naturally, because of my languages background, that was a good fit for me. And also I have an interest in machine learning as well. And I've developed my experience in coding and cloud technologies more recently. I work with GCP and IBM and have built natural language processing tools in those areas. I'm a member of the Leadership Council with Data Ethics for All. In this role, I am working with a team of content writers and editors that's responsible for curating and publishing articles and data stories around ethics and the challenges of AI in society, and the implications for us and the future of our young people as well. My organization is also focused on delivering STEM programs, engaging young people and professionals in the skills that they might need in the future for a world of artificial intelligence. And I'm currently building an EdTech tool with my colleague Adversarial that is for education and is a Socratic questioning chatbot tool. And yeah, looking forward to continuing that project. And over to you, Pam, when you're ready.
Yes, sure. Thank you. So I am a security and a risk professional. My area of expertise and interest has really focused more on how do we create systems that are reliable and secure. And what it means in the AI context is security. Conventional security is hard to do anyway for application security, for system security. But when it comes to AI, we need a little bit more than just secure coding practices, for example, because the entire world is different. The realm of AI is different. And AI, as I mentioned in the intro, is not just one umbrella term. There are many different technologies. So how do we recognize that the risk is going to vary depending on which system of AI you are either building out or implementing? And what are some of the threat models that we are going to have to kind of bake in, because these are not things you can go back and retrofit, for example. So I have a background in creating these risk and security programs, and now in terms of AI trust programs for companies in order to create their roadmap in what do you need to include from the ground up, and how can you really streamline that process so that it doesn't come back to haunt you later on. And there are various presentations I've given on the topic where if this is not foundational, these risks and concerns are not baked in foundation at the very foundation, it will actually lead to more downtime and revenue loss than if you do it right in the beginning. If you do go back and do it, a lot of times it may just mean that you have to start over and entirely scrap the system. And there are various examples of that. Including, algorithmic failure, a presentation that I've given on things that are happening, systems that are being built out, which may involve more than one type of AI, whether it's NLP or machine learning, or, a mixture of NLP and speech recognition, or a mixture of machine learning and NLP, for example, in chatbots, in healthcare, in financial sector, that if they are already showing some signs of stress, so to speak, and these are all massively impactful areas for every day in our society, whether it's hiring, whether it's emotional analysis using emotional intelligence, for example, and creating some analytics based on that, or hiring in terms of, based on mortgage applications, for example, we're seeing some fallout. So this is technology that AI, now let me myself use it as an umbrella term and say that AI is technology that we really want it to work right, because we need it. As human beings, we cannot do half the things that we can, or get the benefits that we can really, I don't want to see my face. I'm just going to move to the next slide. But there are so many things, there's so much benefit that we can get. And really, it's a question of, let's put in the right foundation, as we are very familiar with. how do we do business? We have to take risk, right? We're entrepreneurs. Samantha and I are both entrepreneurs. We know in order to do any business, you have to take risk. The question is, what is the risk to avoid and what is the risk you want to take? And that's what we're here for. Okay. So having said that, we both are very active on LinkedIn. We are industry professionals. And what we want to share with you is industry practitioner experience, as well as, of course, academic experience, because it has to be a good combination of the both of them, right, in order to stay current. And bring to you, how do we do this, right? What is our concept and what is our plan for you in order to integrate and inculcate this as a part of your thinking process, in part of your build out AI DNA process, if you can call it that. And so I mentioned this in the beginning, that artificial intelligence has become an umbrella term, but there are various facets of that under the hood. And some of them, starting from machine learning to NLP, which is what we're talking about here, computer vision, speech recognition, planning and scheduling. Those are some of the things that the value that you get from these areas. Optimization, where can we use AI for optimization? And really streamlining our decision process, not making the decisions, but helping us make right decisions. And I think that is something that is extremely important to highlight again, that we don't want these systems to be decision makers. And if they are decision makers, that's where we really need to pay attention to how we're building them. And for NLP, there are some areas where they can just be very, as Sam mentioned, they're very pervasive. We don't even know how some of these systems are being coming into play. So optimization and planning and scheduling, all these are really related to the areas of the benefits that we can see from AI. Robotics, and then expert system, which was really the something I've done in the past, and I'm not going to go into in detail here. But suffice to say that AI is a large and complex field, and what you find as, again, I will say repeat that there are risks, there are security risks, there are privacy risks, there are outcome risks, there are how do you build these models. Everything is going to be different depending on the system and the part of AI that you are focused on. And then to make it more complex, it could be a hybrid, right? You could have NLP and a robotics, or NLP and machine learning, as I mentioned, right? So how do you bake in the holistic trust is what this workshop series is about. One thing I want to mention also is in today's session, we really want to give you a flavor of what to expect as we do a deeper dive into some of the areas. Okay, and Sam, I'll pass it on to you right now, but we'll just, I'll take a look at the time, please. I'll go ahead and I will.
Okay.
We want to do the workshop in depth will be our next step, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think it's important to just introduce the key concepts and look at some of the frameworks that exist, and I will start with that now. And I think what you're saying, Pam, is absolutely key, that we understand the complexity of artificial intelligence and that we start to think about how we build these models and these systems from the ground up, and really think about the implications from a security and risk perspective and a privacy perspective as well, but also looking at the other elements as well, which I'll talk about briefly, okay, which is where my background comes in, okay, and looking at bias in data and the ethical implications as well. Okay, so yeah, when we're ready, I'll get started on that, and obviously because we started a bit later, maybe I can go over that quicker, and we'll pass it on to you, Pam, when I finish this section. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Yeah, and if you have any questions, let me know. But naturally, being someone that has a linguistics background and somebody that started working with this technology a few years ago now, I've developed an interest as well in how language is evolving in technology, where the gaps are, and some of those, the implications for us as users within a business environment. There's lots of use cases for NLP that have been adapted and used already, but what is an NLP and where are the issues right now? And also, how does that link into the wider deep learning and machine learning and AI ecosphere? Okay. So if you can see just a quick summary of what NLP means, what the definition is, I'll quickly go through that with you now. Okay, so you should see that now on the screen. So natural language processing encompasses an element of AI. Okay, it's within the banner of AI, and it's a branch of AI. Okay, and it concerns giving computers and computing tech power, if you like, the ability to understand text, the conversations that we have as humans, as in spoken word. Okay, and training the algorithms that are built into machine learning how to understand human conversations and text inputs. NLP encompasses quite a lot of different areas, so not just linguistics and rule-based modeling, but also deep learning as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, because machine learning and deep learning overlap when it comes to understanding NLP. NLP technology enables computers to process human language as well, as I said, in the form of text to voice or voice to text data. It allows us to understand the meaning of inputs of voice and text, and also enables the intents and the sentiments as well of speakers to be understood. So technology is really coming on in terms of its ability to understand sentiment and meaning and nuance. Okay. And you've probably seen NLP in everyday usage from translation tools with Google Translate, and chatbots. There's lots of different applications in chatbots as well, and also GTP3, which creates text and generates text. Okay, yeah, and it's actually an application that helps streamline business operations as well, and employee productivity and mission critical processes. If I just quickly move on to some of the problems often we get with NLP and some of the things you have to overcome as a programmer. Human language is ambiguous, and there's lots of misinterpretations when it comes to the text inputs themselves and the training data. And really, NLP, with the aid of programming, allows us to essentially train models to become better at detecting natural language, to remove some of these inaccuracies and these ambiguities. Okay. There's a lot of different components of NLP. I'm just going to quickly go through those now. Okay, so key components might be, for example, speech recognition. We can see on screen in the next slide an overview of a typical architecture for speech to text NLP from Microsoft. GCP have a really good model as well, and as do IBM, so they all have their own high-level overviews of how NLP performs and operates, and the steps that you have to take to manage and to actually train the machine learning algorithms for speech to text. And you can see that here. This is just converting voice data to text data at a high level. There's also the ability as well in NLP to tag conversations, to tag parts of speech. It's called grammatical tagging. If you've heard of this before, or parts of speech tagging, it often is referred to as that. And it's a process of determining parts of speech. And as a linguist, that's something you do on a daily basis. But technology also does that quite quickly now. And it uses hidden Markov chains to do that as well. The NLP also involves understanding word sense and putting words into context. And that requires, obviously, training. And I'll talk about that in a little while. So disambiguation is one thing that NLP is very good at, understanding the meaning of words that have multiple meanings, and understanding semantics as well, and understanding, as I said, context in language. Okay, so distinguishing, for example, the meaning of a particular word, but make versus make the grade, and make a bet. Okay. that context is key, and NLP enables us to do that through the right training and the right model building. And we've also got the semantics as well, and categorizing semantics, as you can see here. And I'm just going to move on to just talk about very quickly sentiment. Sentiment in NLP is another area that that we often see being analyzed as an output, but also trained on. And that's about deciphering emotions and attitudes and feelings and opinions in text, whether sentiment is positive or negative, and obviously objects within text that detect sentiment, okay? And analyzing that output as well, understanding context so that you can give feedback to customers in the right way, for example, or support to customers in a service environment, okay? When you build a model, and this is something that no-code AI does very well for you, and this is something we'll come on to later on in the series, you actually have to train in a supervised learning environment, the machine learning algorithm with intents and entities. And this is part of the landscape of modeling language. I haven't got time to show you that today, but I will show you in future sessions how we do that, how we build dialogues, how we import corpora, and how we model and predict conversations in chatbots, which is something that is very useful and will be discussed. There's a lot of applications in NLP beyond parts of speech tagging and sentiment analysis and building chatbots. It is all encompassing, as Pam and I have said. It covers a number of different areas now. GTB3 is a natural language generation tool now that we're seeing more and more. There is machine translation that is becoming more common as a tool, as an IoT, as a tool to utilize. And text summarization as well is also something that we're seeing more and more in the NLP space. And tokenization and stemming and lemmatization as well. So there's lots of applications in different areas. So that's essentially a summary of what you can expect from essentially how NLP is utilized and implemented. And then I wanted to just have a quick look at, well, why is NLP so important? And just how it fits into the deep learning and machine learning ecosystem. And then I'll just have a look at the risks very quickly. Okay, so if you just go on to the next slide. Why is NLP so important? Well, we know that it's part of many different applications, chatbots, voice assistants, and it's familiar to us, okay? NLP foundation models, as we'll see in subsequent workshops, has the potential to impact our lives in a very real way, our economy as well. And there isn't any established mechanism really in place to identify the risks in organizations or for organizations. And the frameworks are not there. And we're looking at that in this series, okay? We build these tools, we hire developers and programmers to allow us to create these applications, but we don't always understand the risks involved. And the other thing, and this is something that I think comes up quite a lot, is just how much the market is growing, particularly in NLP. So the AI sector, for example, in the UK is expected to grow to about $814 billion by 2035. And the size of the NLP, particularly the chatbot market, is going to reach a significant epoch by 2025. And we're looking at around $1 billion of potential revenue generated just in that sector. Okay, so there's lots of potential, but how do we minimize the risks? Yeah.
I just want to add, right. So the reason that is significant is because there is so much potential and there is the promise of AI, right? Companies, of course, want to adopt it, but without the right kind of mitigating and risk identification and mitigating controls, it is not easy for everyone to invest, right? If that's not your core competency, to really know where is the risk coming from, because these are not static risks, right? This is not a one static model of a machine or a threat model that you can build and say that, yeah, my team can use this, right?
Mm.
This is evolving. It is a highly dynamic area. That is why it is really important to leverage what exists out there, whether it's from NIST, whether it's from MIT, right? That is what we want to kind of really provide to you, right? Take the, and Sam, I'll just add one thing here, because this is, I think, really important, that this is not an academic exercise. We want to offer this as a business enabler for organizations who are out there building already and or want to build, because let's step back. Without Accenture predicted in a couple of years ago that if a company does not adopt, an organization does not adopt AI, they could risk going out of business. Why is that? Because there is so much data, and you don't want to just analyze data without a intent, right? So unless you have, unless you take that data and you make sense out of it, you cannot see the value of it, simply put. So how do you do this so that you are getting what you are setting out to do, the value you want to do or get out of it? That's really going to be dictated by how much trust do you build into these systems? And that's the whole premise, right? So I'll let you continue, but in terms from the business perspective, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what this course is doing as well, Pam, I think, and this ties into what you're saying, is bring in that sense of transparency across AI, and particularly in NLP. And I think from my learning as well in the past, it's a complex field, and understanding the way an application is built and the need for transparency is key, and also understanding the risks when it comes to modeling. For example, building the tools and actually machine learning itself, how that functions and operates at a very granular level, but from a business user's perspective, so they can see that overview. And as I was saying as well just then, AI encompasses NLP, as well as machine learning, but also deep learning, and it's understanding that and the layers involved in building those tools. And that's where, I think it's really important, and this is where their value will be. So that's the next bit, is, well, what is deep learning for NLP, and what do we mean by machine learning? And I'm just going to give you a quick overview now of a typical deep learning model, and then I'll just go through the risks, and Pam will carry on then with the next section. So deep learning is a subset of AI, and it's also a subset of machine learning as well. Okay, and it's actually something that we don't have visibility of within organizations. And deep learning actually involves quite complex networks of unsupervised data that isn't structured, that's not labeled, that it hasn't got the human intervention that we often get with building basic chatbots, such as the one that, the IBM chatbot that I built and that I'll be showing you. It doesn't have that element there, and it's unsupervised. It leverages neural networks, or ANNs, artificial neural networks, to simulate the way the brain functions. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. Okay, the details you don't necessarily need to have beyond that, but that's the general approach. A neural network is complex, it's interconnected, okay, and it has millions of layers, okay, and that's why we call it deep learning. So understanding that, I think, is really important, especially when you're building these tools and are utilizing them with the data that we use. Okay.
Right, and building in the trust, right? Because
and building in the trust into it. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think that would connect really well. It's a larger field of study of AI. NLP is redefining now how machines understand language for the better. Okay, using deep learning. So deep learning is enriching NLP, making it better for you as a business and as an organization, but it's just understanding the vector and the mapping and how that works. Yeah, and actually how it could potentially open up new possibilities for NLP. Okay, so that's essentially deep learning and the benefits to NLP. We use deep learning at the minute already as Pam was saying, we are in the middle of it, I think, to an extent, as organizations and as users. We use it in predictive analytics, in computer vision, as Pam was saying earlier, and in object detection already. So it's a powerful tool, okay, and very popular. And it's used in chatbots. Alexa and Siri use deep learning, and it affects different sectors. So we're talking healthcare, education, other service sectors, okay. And it's about being aware of that and knowing the differences between supervised and unsupervised learning, and how that builds trust, and how we build trust into both, okay. Yeah, so that's essentially it. And there's your classical NLP model, which is what I was talking about before, which is where you import thousands of corpora text, and you model the machine learning algorithm on that yourself, and you are programming that yourself to create semantic analysis, classifications, sense, word disambiguation. All of those things are what we call classical NLP, where we have control. But then you have the unsupervised learning, deep learning NLP, which is where we look at hidden layers of neural networks. Okay, so they're the two areas where NLP sits. And we have plenty of examples that we can show you going forward.
Yes, plenty of examples.
Yeah,
and also, sorry, Sam.
Yeah, carry on, Pam. No, because I'm finished. I'm just finishing now. So
no, plenty of examples, as well as relation to the latest developments, right? Yeah. What are the GPT-3? What does that mean to you, right? What is the significance? Yeah. And what is why do, right? What is happening in the world around us, where bigger is better, or is it, right? It is extremely important to understand what is the risk these models bring. And also, if we don't have the trust in them, right? It is a really complex issue. And as Sam said, there is the traditional NLP, and then there is the hybrid model of how NLP feeds into machine learning and for a application, right? For AI application, you will see a combination of different AI technologies, and each one of them are complex. The threat surface is complex, and understanding where risk can come in, whether it's from security or from privacy or from what you're all hearing about, ethics, right? Yep. It's not something we can look in silos. So that's something I've talked about in the past a lot, and I will continue to chant that mantra. We talk about ethics more than anything else, but we really need to take a look at all of this in entirety, in holistic.
Entirely. Yeah. Great.
So let's
Thank you, Pam.
we'll just go to so what you can expect. Let me tell you. So some of this will, most of this will be in the workshop that we'll go into as to what comprises, what under the hood in these technologies. It's a 3-part series. So let me give you an idea of what to expect. And Sam, keep me honest. What we want to do is for each one of them, talk about what are the, I don't think I have time to go into this. But let me weave this into what we are offering, all right? How does it connect? This is defining what is the threats from AI in our world today and threats to the stack in AI, all right? How do you implement it? How AI can be used by the bad actors, how it can be used for evil, or how it can be used for good. It really is dependent on our hands. So the ethics, when we talk about, comes down to how we implement these systems, all right? That's one thing. The other is, how do you build it, security and privacy and trust into the AI stack itself, okay? So what we want to do, what we're hoping to do for this 3-part workshop series is to talk about just for NLP, right? We just saw that there are different elements of AI. So we're not going to cover all of them in this series, okay? We will be collaborating with different experts. Right now, this one is for NLP, all right? We're just going to focus on NLP. And the focus is for each part of the workshop, talk about the different types of input that is involved in NLP, whether it's voice or data, voice or just static data or text, or images or
video
even
as well. We
video.
looked at video, and images,
And then, and that's Sam's forte. And then I will be partnering with her to talk about how to build in that element of trust, right? Whereas where you can either identify risk, because everything, like I mentioned, is going to be dynamic, right? It changes. Then we don't want to just tell you how to spot a problem in a given static snapshot, but want to come away with being able to think about, remember that DNA I was talking about, risk-based DNA, help you identify, help get that mindset of what are you seeing, how do you kind of build that into your own models, right? Because we would like to walk you through how do you build an NLP model, what is involved in building it, and where the risk can come from. And then depending on the kind of data, that risk is going to be, of course, different, right? We'll not go into too much detail here because we do have to wrap up. This is supposed to be an intro as to what you can expect from these series, okay? But the legal framework that came out of EU and then also the EU AI Act, there are various elements. The legal framework is based on guidelines, and that comprises 7 elements, which is human agency and oversight, which means human autonomy, right, of decision making. Extremely important. Technical robustness and safety, privacy and data governance. They're talking about transparency, and what are the elements of trustworthy AI, really. Diversity and freedom of bias, right, from these systems as we build them. And these systems should, of course, be following the democratic principles of being environmentally and societally sound, and accountability. So one thing I just want to mention really quick, when we're looking at environmental and societal well-being, if you've trained any of these models, you know how much electricity they use up. These are not environmentally friendly models, so we really have to kind of bake that into it too. Okay, that may not have been the AI intelligence expert level group's intent, but I just want to mention that because we are talking about a holistic approach too. I'm not going to go into pros and cons or even the NIST taxonomy right now, but just really quick, want to talk about TextAttack, which is a framework for adversarial attacks and data. This is something that I do want to focus on in the 3 workshops in terms of how do you democratize risk identification and mitigation, okay, for NLP, and how do you use TextAttack, which is came out of this approach from MIT and Virginia professors. What do you want to go into that for the different sessions? It's basically a Python framework, and then remember what I was saying, that these risks will keep on changing. It's not something that we can look at the code in one snapshot in time and hope to identify all the rest, right? This is something that in any system, as you develop system, the risk change, data changes, very different environment for building, as we know, as in conventional. Again, don't have time to go into this. I'm just going to go to the first slide, which is, let me just actually let's go to the first slide so that we can.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, okay.
That way,
summarize. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So this was I know we had some technology glitches for going in on LinkedIn Live. If this was, we do have a recording, so we are happy to share that if you're so inclined. The intent, I think we did achieve, Sam, what do you think? Which was to go into the, the
Yeah,
agenda here.
Yeah, we've gone over the what to expect as attendees and introduced the program. Yeah, absolutely. We've squeezed in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm very excited to be here with you, Sam. I'm a
Me
huge
too. Yeah.
admirer of yours, so this is great.
It's a pleasure, Pam, and an absolute delight to be working with you, and an honor, really is. So thank you for inviting me, and yeah, it's good to see you online too on LinkedIn Live, and yeah, we'll look forward to seeing everyone the next session.
Okay,
And
thank you.
yeah, thank you. Okay.
Please reach out to us on.
Yes.
Okay, please just reach out to us, and there are various ways. Either through Sam. Next time we can also talk about how to have a
contact.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, no
right
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but LinkedIn's a good is fine. Absolutely. Yep.
And if you have any requests for special topics that you feel are important to you, let us know, because we'll be happy to accommodate. Right.
And to resolve. Yeah, to follow up. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Thank everyone. Thanks. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye. 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 Bye.
Sam, I'm going to call you directly.
Okay.